Travel unlocks an innate human desire for freedom, exploration and wonderment, a heightened sense of discovery through awe-inspiring natural landscapes and an array of unique local cultures. However, preserving our environment and local cultures from the adverse impacts of increased tourism is becoming more pressing than ever before. Sustainable tourism must be the answer to ensure the conservation of our natural environments and cultures for future generations of explorers and globetrotters. The Social and Economic Development Plan for the fiscal year 2022-23 reflects the extent of interest in environmental improvement initiatives and that the support to sustainable green growth, with investments ranging between 35% and 40% of the total investment in the year of the plan. In this regard, the Economic and Social Development Plan refers to the inclusion of initiatives to stimulate green tourism within the framework of the environmental sustainability system by stimulating the establishment of hotels compatible with the environment, eco-lodge. There are successful experiences in incorporating environmental aspects in resorts like in Siwa Oasis and Mosallam in the Red Sea, and Dahab in the Gulf of Aqaba, where the commitment of companies and establishments to environmental controls are followed up as a prerequisite for obtaining environmental validity certificates and for the continuation of work. The initiatives to convert vehicles licensed by tourists to work with environmentally friendly energy, as well as obliging diving centers to obtain the green mark, and obligating all hotel and tourist establishments in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh as a first stage, indicating that they have obtained an accreditation certificate in accordance with the requirements of green and environmentally friendly practice. The World Tourism Organization defines sustainable tourism as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. Mainstreaming biodiversity in Egypt's tourism, as Global Environment Facility funded project implemented by the United Nations Development Programme and the Ministry of Environment, is aiming to provide continuous support to eco-certified tourism establishments and businesses to increase sectoral awareness of sustainable operations, but also to reduce the negative impacts associated with harmful tourism development and practices. Last May, the project's initiative, Eco-Egypt, launched Egypt's first ever green list to promote the tourism establishment's best practices and products, contributing to environmental and cultural heritage preservation. The GL contains leading hotels, diving centers, eco-lodges and products that have obtained an eco-label or are adopting significant sustainable practices. Eco-Egypt also developed an animated video displaying the journey of a sustainable traveler. The video highlights the hotels, eco-lodges, diving centers and eco-friendly products that have acquired an eco-label or have proven commitment towards environmental conservation. The Egyptian Sustainable Tourism Portal, the first online tool dedicated to hospitality professionals and tourism experts, was also launched to help increase the adoption of green and cost-effective measures in the tourism sector. The STP and hospitality guidelines were developed in close coordination with the Egyptian Hotel Association to ensure their viability and applicability. Currently, the city is witnessing an ongoing green transformation to become a model for sustainable coastal tourism centers globally.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Mr. Mosallam. Now, sir, everyone's talking about turning into a green sort of economy, an environmentally friendly economy, sustainable development. That's the language everyone's been using in all different sectors of the Egyptian economy. And the tourism sector is one of the most important and significant sectors for our economy. Now there's talk about green development in this sector. Now, how, I mean, if we're talking about industries, we talk about using renewable energy, less carbon emissions, but how or what does a green development and a green environmentally friendly tourism sector mean? What would you want to see by having an environmentally friendly tourism sector?
Well, environmental work in Egypt have to be something different. For example, we have 3,630 sites in Egypt. Most of these sites are not all under protection. For example, we have 88 sites with tickets. People are allowed to get inside. And the government are taking care of the whole thing environmentally. But I believe if we want to take the lead in this sector, we have to start in every place that the tourists visit in Egypt. They think of the area of Giza, for example, to exchange the way of transportation to the site. We understand in some countries they don't build a factory or industrial place next to a site 5 kilometers away. If it's inside the capital, for example, 2 kilometers away. We find in a lot of sites in Egypt, houses of the people right next to the place, for example, or a factory was built, or a compound, or whatever. So we better start from now, as we are starting by the opening of the new Egyptian Museum, to get, for example, a new way of transportation for Giza and the new Egyptian Museum, which is the green bus, the bus that is working with electric power, without using our common way of transportation. So everybody gonna visit the site, gonna park his car or vehicle outside and use this bus. And we hope this is gonna succeed, because we need to work on what we call it mass production in this. I mean, it's huge numbers are going to this site. So it's a good move for a site like Giza to start this way. And I believe it's going to work in the rest of the sites in Egypt if we are thinking right. But it's all going to cost a lot.
Yes.
It's very costly, actually.
Yes. Well,
I mean, if you want to build a museum, you have to get veterans for billions.
Yes.
If you want to put every piece in a veteran, this is going to cost a lot. Look at the first museum that we have 120 years ago, the great the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir Square. You can touch a lot of pieces. So if you're going to get some veterans and make some redecoration for this museum, you can even go around the monuments. So you have to build a new museum costing 21 billion like we do in the gym and move the pieces to there.
Yes. Well, it is a costly process, but also the tourism industry is one of the most important for the Egyptian economy. It's a source of foreign currency. And it seems that Egypt has built and established many museums over the past few years in different governorates and different places that were just maybe known for residential areas or just beach tourism and entertainment tourism destinations. Now, as you've mentioned, also the much anticipated inauguration and opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum. Do you feel that the tourism now is taking the lead in terms of the different kinds of museums Egypt enjoys? We have the beach museum, cultural museum, cultural tourism, religious tourism, medical tourism, all of these things. Do you feel that now the cultural tourism is taking the lead in terms of all these kinds?
Mainly the cultural tourism in Egypt is always taking the lead, because most of the tourists who come to Egypt are thinking of the monuments of history, temples, tombs. So we notice the latest period that we have number of tourists are coming mainly first to be based on Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada. Okay, so we understand that we need the tourists to be involved in that, not just a kind of beach tourism. So we built a museum in Sharm el-Sheikh and organize what we call it the quick trips from the location that the tourists like to come to the main site, the cultural site, like
Yes.
Luxor, the same way in flights to Cairo to visit Giza Plateau. Preparing new airport like Sphinx Airport to be close to the new Egyptian Museum and the site of Giza. But of course, if we get a huge number of tourists coming from those two sites, we will have a problem in transportation because we usually have long time as a traveling period from Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada, like 10 hours to reach here. But by plane, it's 45 minutes.
Yes.
Not every tourist are affording to travel by plane. Most of them travel by bus. So preparing such a tour is really going to be good goal for us, because we understand that tourism, number one for the people, is attracting people's mind to more fun sites. Then mix it with the cultural tourism and try to make it in a good way, because we understand that in the old times we usually make cruise trips which take from 2 weeks to 1 month.
Yes.
Nowadays the cruise trips take 4 days. From Luxor to Aswan, Edfu, Kumam, and that's it. So the culture tourism, we understand that people in Europe are interested in come and visiting it, but now the material of the tourist, as I usually say, is different. He's looking for the cheaper and the most comfortable. We have the role that have to be played in encouraging the kind of cultural tourism. I mean, Egypt is not going to be forgotten in cultural tourism,
Yes,
of course. We have,
course.
for example, 430 cruises going all around from Luxor to Aswan, but this is not enough. I mean, if we are planning to be a tourist grabber country, we have to plan for at least 2 million tourists a month.
Well, that's a big number, 2 million tourists a month.
That's
and
true.
You've mentioned how important is it to have an affordable sort of tourism industry and also a convenient and comfortable one. Do you feel that you've mentioned the airports, you've mentioned the transportation between different locations and destinations, combining them together and making it easier? What else do you feel we need to reach such a target of having 2 million tourists a month?
Well, we have already something very good in Egypt. Prices are amazing for our tourism. So it's a competing prices among any country in tourism. Number two, now we have a very good way of transportation for all the sites in Egypt. New roads, flyovers, undergrounds. Everything is prepared to have the base for good transportation. Can help for the locals and tourists as well. So the latest thing to announce, some countries have a good way of announcing or introducing themselves or making propaganda or showing a phantasma for the country. For example, I see a country that is creating a new song are mentioning the name of the country. Come to this place and mentioning the name. Other are making opera, other are making offers. So we need to, this third sector have to be prepared in a very good way to boost tourism.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you've heard from Mr. Mosallam, a lot of work is being done in terms of unearthing the national treasures here, but still also a lot of work needs to be done to reach a good number of having 2 million tourists a month, working on the marketing, the advertisement, the green development, as we've mentioned earlier on. And definitely all this will be helping to boost the tourism industry and the Egyptian economy as a whole. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my guest, Mr. Ahmed Mosallam, the tour guide and expert. Mr. Mosallam, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
You're welcome, sir. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.